Hi folks, Pastor Charles here. This is the second installment of my new podcast, The Voice of Reason. This is a subject matter that I've referred to and I've spoken of on many occasions, but I've never taken the time to commit to video exactly what I'm talking about. And I think this is so important and so necessary to understand, so I want to share this today. I have said on any number of occasions that when I saw Donald Trump come down the escalators at Trump Tower and announce his presidency, and I heard his first speech and then subsequent speeches, I immediately sensed something very evil, something very problematic and troublesome. And I told Tommy, I said, this man is literally using Adolf Hitler's playbook. I said, I don't know how. I don't know. I've been warning the church for decades that there were racists and nationalists in the wings who were waiting for an opportunity to rise up and cause a second civil war. I said that they were waiting for a president who would make it possible for them to do so. And when I heard and saw Trump begin his first run for the White House, I said, this is their man. This is their man. These people will be able to go out and kill and bomb and destroy, and Donald Trump will pardon them so that there are no legal repercussions. This is where our democracy is so fragile. This is where if you put somebody in the White House who is unscrupulous, amoral, ungodly, wicked, this is where you are taking great risks because you're putting powers within his control that literally can enable him to overthrow our democracy and overthrow our republic if he or she has the mind to do so. And I saw this man's character. I said, my God, I grew up with a narcissist, and I know exactly what narcissism looks like. I also know what hell it is to live with. And immediately I came under a horrible, almost like a PTSD. The entire first term, Trump's term in office, his entire 4 years, folks, Tommy can tell you, I was in a state of PTSD because it felt like I was back in a situation that I had escaped when I grew up and moved away from home. Once again, I was under the thumb of a narcissist, and it was beyond my control to get out of underneath his thumb. And it concerned me greatly. Most of the great dictators of our time and authoritarians of the last many centuries, most of them have been narcissists. Narcissism lends itself readily to dictatorship and authoritarianism. When I said this man is following Adolf Hitler's playbook, many people simply take that as, oh, Charles is just saying that because, he has his own political leanings and he doesn't like Trump's policies. No, I don't like Trump. Has nothing in the universe to do with policies. I can live with anybody's policies. I've never been one to fret or run around like a chicken with my head chopped off when there was a Republican in office, regardless of what policies he was implementing. That's never been my style. It's never been how I've operated. It is not his policies. It is he as a person is so horribly unqualified to be a public servant. He knows nothing of service. This man has never served anyone ever in his life. All he has ever done is pursue his own interests, pursue wealth. If there's anything that is going to destroy America, and it is destroying America, it is greed. And Donald Trump is the epitome. He is the walking byproduct of greed. He is quoted long before ever running for office. He is quoted as saying, "I don't believe you can be too greedy." This man is all about serving himself, pursuing his own interests, doing anything and everything he has to do, including manipulating people in order to achieve his own ends. He realized that he could easily manipulate a certain voting bloc. And this is why he ran as a Republican and not as a Democrat. Most of his life, Donald Trump identified as a Democrat or embraced democratic ideals and policies. He said in many interviews over the last many years, he said, "I don't know why, but the economy always seems to do better under Democrats." But if he was to win the White House, he is a narcissist. They are professional manipulators. He knew, well, hey, I can easily manipulate the Republican Party because there are certain emotional issues that gets their base all riled up and gets them charging. And all I have to do is hit the high notes and harp on these issues, gay rights, abortion, and boy, howdy, man, I'll have the... And he accomplished exactly what he set out to do. When I said this man is following Hitler's playbook, I did not know at that time. I found out later that in 1992, his ex-wife had said in an interview with Vanity Fair magazine that Donald Trump kept a copy of Hitler's speeches at his bedside. Who in the universe, who is going to be so engrossed and so interested in Adolf Hitler's speeches that you're going to keep this? She didn't say he had read this book. She said he kept it on his nightstand. He kept it ever available to him. So apparently he looked through it on any number of occasions, if you can read that, if you can believe that Donald Trump reads. Now I want to go through a number of very famous Adolf Hitler quotes. And I want you to seriously think for a moment, look at the way this man operates, and see for yourself if you don't see him using the Adolf Hitler playbook, okay? The first of Hitler's many recorded quotes is, "A leader of genius must have the ability to make different opponents appear as if they belonged to one category." Donald Trump constantly speaks of Democrats as socialists and communists and fascists. He literally is trying to take what are actually a number of different categories, and he's trying to bring them all together, and he's creating a false equivalency. He's making the Republican base believe that Democrats, that's your main category, all these negative, horrible, wicked, terrible things are part of being a Democrat, okay? And so he is literally making people believe that different opponents appear as if they belong to one category. Second Adolf Hitler, quote, the great masses of the people will more easily fall victims to a big lie than to a small one, end quote. We have seen Trump for years now promote, quote, the big lie. Doesn't matter how many courts have shot it down, doesn't matter how many times it has been proven to be a lie. He continually repeats this big lie over and over and over again, because according to Hitler, the bigger the lie, the more likely the masses are to swallow it, the more likely they are to fall victim to it. Listen to this now. Adolf Hitler, quote, universal education is the most corroding and disintegrating poison that liberalism has ever invented for its own destruction, end quote. I don't know about you, but in recent rallies, I've watched Donald Trump get up and say, I love uneducated people. I love the uneducated. Of course he does. The uneducated are much more easily manipulated. They don't understand how things work. They don't understand how things are done. And therefore, you can say anything to them, and they're going to just buy into whatever you say. If you say, I'm going to go in office, I'm going to do this on the first day, even if it is not remotely within your power to do that thing on the first day, or any day for that matter, people who are ignorant, who are uneducated, are going to believe you. They're going to buy into that because they don't know any better. Adolf Hitler, quote, the victor will never be asked if he told the truth, end quote. The victor will never be asked if he told the truth. Another quote, how fortunate for governments that the people they administer don't think, end quote. Hitler was saying, you can count on the populace, you can count on the masses to be thoughtless. They don't put a lot of thought into anything. They tend to react emotionally. They tend to react reactionarily. They do not think. They do not put great thought. And there are other quotes you're going to see that are going to build off of that in a moment. Adolf Hitler, quote, the broad masses of a population are more amenable to the appeal of rhetoric than to any other force. So Hitler said the broad masses of people are more likely to buy into rhetoric, just screeching out foolishness, emotional, hyperbole, than any other force. If there was any mistake Hillary Clinton made during her campaign, it was the fact, and I said this while she was running, sadly, she spoke to the American people as though they were thoughtful, intelligent people. And while many American people are thoughtful and intelligent people, a huge chunk of our population, at least somewhere close to half, are not. And therefore, she lost them. They didn't get her, but you got Donald Trump up there just shouting and screaming all kinds of emotionally charged rhetoric, and they bought into him hook, line, and sinker. Adolf Hitler said, anyone who sees and paints a sky green and paints blue and fields blue ought to be sterilized. So he literally was saying basically that the mentally retarded and the mentally handicapped, or even for that matter, people who are creative and kind of, create outside of the norms ought to be sterilized. He then said, in a similar vein to his earlier quote, how fortunate for governments that the people they administer don't think. He also said in another quote, what good fortune for governments that the people do not think. Another Adolf Hitler quote, strength lies not in defense, but in attack. You never see Donald Trump engaging in any defense of his positions or any defense of his actions, but rather you see him constantly attacking, constantly. He attacks judges, he attacks attorneys, he attacks anyone who stands in opposition to him. When he was running against Hillary Clinton, he did not present a better vision for America. He did not present better policies and, a better platform. The Republican Party literally ran that campaign without an official platform because Donald Trump was incapable of a platform. All he did throughout that entire campaign was attack, attack, attack. Adolf Hitler said, the great strength of the totalitarian state is that it forces those who fear it to imitate it. Totalitarians, one of the reasons that they succeed is because oftentimes in an effort to prevent totalitarianism and to overthrow totalitarianism, the other side has to basically become totalitarian in and of themselves. So therefore, you have the negative totalitarians pointing to, quote, the positive totalitarian and saying, yeah, but see, they're trying to do the same thing as we are. Or they're trying to do the same thing they're accusing us of, Adolf Hitler said, success is the sole earthly judge of right and wrong. Success is no morality, not scripture, not God, no morality whatsoever. Success is the sole earthly judge of right and wrong. Adolf Hitler said, generals think war should be waged like the tourneys or tournaments of the Middle Ages. I have no use for knights. I need revolutionaries. Adolf Hitler said the day of individual happiness has ended. Adolf Hitler said the art of leadership consists in consolidating the attention of the people against a single adversary and taking care that nothing will split up that attention. Adolf Hitler said, I use emotion for the many and reserve reason for the few. I use emotion for the many and reserve reason for the few. Most of these folks, I think, are self-explanatory. That's why I'm not going into much detail here. Hitler said it is always more difficult to fight against faith than against knowledge. And this is why he used faith as part of his campaign. He claimed to be on a holy mission. Adolf Hitler, folks, claimed that everything he was doing was ordained of God. And there are other quotes I'm going to read to you after a little bit that'll help you to see that he did indeed say that. Adolf Hitler said, "Great liars are also great magicians." Adolf Hitler said, "It is not truth that matters, but victory." Adolf Hitler said, "Hate is more lasting than dislike." When Donald Trump was running his first campaign, him and his minions were constantly stirring his crowds up with hateful, nasty, negative chants, lock her up, lock her up. He was all about trying to get you to hate his opponent, because hate, Hitler said, is more lasting than dislike. I was watching his quote-unquote victory speech after his New Hampshire win the other day, and it was so interesting because that one black politician, I can't think of his name right off the top of my head, he doesn't impress me too much, to be honest with you, who had dropped out of the presidential race and endorsed Trump. He's an elected official from Nikki Haley's state. And Trump was saying, Nikki Haley appointed him to this federal office and blah, blah, blah. And yet, he is supporting me and he is endorsing me. And then he turns to the guy and he said, "You must really hate her." Why in the world would anybody approach things from that perspective? Why in the name of God would anybody literally have to approach it from the perspective of, well, you must really hate her, rather than say, for instance, well, you must really like me? No, it's not what he said. He said, you must really hate her, because he uses hate as a tool. This is why he constantly repeats over and over again the lies and the fraudulent statements about Joe Biden and his quote-unquote crime family and how corrupt he is. It's all projection, as any narcissist is prone to do. But he's literally constantly trying to stir up hate and make people hate, because people are more passionate. They will be more active. They will be more reliable to vote and to do his bidding if they're motivated by hate. Adolf Hitler said, "I do not see why any man should not be just as cruel as nature." So, lions attack gazelles and zebras, and nature is violent, and, it's very cruel, and it's hard to watch. I don't know about you, but I can't hardly watch a lot of nature programs when they show certain prey being attacked, by other animals and stuff. It's hard for me to watch. But Adolf Hitler said he doesn't see why man should not be just as cruel as nature. Maybe this is why it would be so easy to lock children up and in camps and in prisons at the border and separate them from their parents, and to do so in such a way that you don't even take care, you don't even make any provision to make certain that they'll be able to be reunited at some later date. Maybe that's why Adolf Hitler said, any alliance whose purpose is not the intention to wage war is senseless and useless. That might explain why Trump has no use for NATO. Adolf Hitler said the very first essential for success is a perpetually constant and regular employment of violence. Adolf Hitler said humanitarianism is the expression of stupidity and cowardice. Humanitarianism is the expression of stupidity and cowardice. Trying to treat human beings decently and in a good way and not treating them like animals, according to Hitler, is the expression of stupidity and cowardice. Now listen to this quote. Adolf Hitler said, "I believe today that my conduct is in accordance with the will of the Almighty Creator." Adolf Hitler said, "Demoralize the enemy from within by surprise, terror, sabotage, assassination. This is the war of the future." Adolf Hitler said, "As a Christian, I have no duty to allow myself to be cheated, but I have the duty to be a fighter for truth and justice." And we know what Adolf Hitler was. He was hardly a fighter for truth and justice, and yet he called himself, he identified as a Christian. Adolf Hitler said, "Sooner will a camel pass through the needle's eye than a great man be discovered by an election." Adolf Hitler said, "All propaganda has to be popular and has to accommodate itself to the comprehension of the least intelligent of those whom it seeks to reach." I'm going to read that again. Adolf Hitler said, "All propaganda has to be popular and has to accommodate itself to the comprehension of the least intelligent of those whom it seeks to reach." It had been said of Trump since the first day of his first campaign, this man doesn't even talk like an adult. This is supposed to be a man who's graduated from a prestigious college with a business degree, and yet he talks like a third grader. Why? Because all propaganda has to be popular and has to accommodate itself to the comprehension of the least intelligent of those whom it seeks to reach. Adolf Hitler said, "As soon as by one's own propaganda, even a glimpse of right on the other side is admitted, the cause for doubting one's own right is laid." So what Hitler is saying is, you never back down from a lie. You never, ever, ever change your story. If you are spreading a message by reason of propaganda, then you continually spread that message. You do not for 1 second even hint that maybe the other side was right. Because the minute you do that, you have laid the foundation for those who are hearing your propaganda to possibly begin to doubt what you've been saying. So in order to be effective in propaganda, you must continually say the same thing, never change your message, never admit to wrong, never admit that there's any possibility under any circumstances that the other side might be right. We've seen this with the great lie, the great election lie, okay, over and over. He's still 4 years, nearly 3 years later, he's still saying over and over again the same thing, no matter what the judges have said, no matter what investigations have turned up, no matter what the experts have reported, he just continually says the same thing. His propaganda, because it is propaganda, never ever changes its tune. Adolf Hitler said, by the skillful and sustained use of propaganda, one can make a people see even heaven as hell, or an extremely wretched life as paradise. Fox News and the Republican Party for decades have been using propaganda as a tool. They've been making the religious right believe that the church is under great persecution, and oh my goodness, the world is falling, the sky is falling, everything's terrible. Even now, they continually spread the lie that the economy is in horrible condition. Oh my God, we need somebody to come in and save the economy. Even though under Biden's tenure, the stock market has broken record after record, even though the economy is in better shape than it was at any point under growth is at a better place at any point under Trump's presidency. Even though all the economic indicators are positive and good, they go out of their way through skillful and sustained use of propaganda to make people see heaven as hell and an extremely wretched life as paradise. They've convinced the Republican base to vote against their own self-interests. They've convinced poor people to vote for them. And all they have on their agenda is to keep the poor poor. All they have on their agenda is to work the working class even harder, to get more out of them, and to give less to them. But they've got these people believing that a wretched life is paradise, and they've got these people believing that heaven is hell. Adolf Hitler said, mankind has grown strong in eternal struggles, and it will only perish through eternal peace. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? That is the antithesis of Christian faith and teaching. This man claimed to be a Christian. This man claimed to be on a mission from God. And yet here he says that humanity would perish through eternal peace. Now listen, Adolf Hitler said, the doom of a nation can be averted only by a storm of flowing passion. But only those who are passionate themselves can arouse passion in others. He also said, all great movements are popular movements. They are the volcanic eruptions of human passions and emotions. Listen, stirred into activity by the ruthless goddess of distress, or by the torch of the spoken word cast into the midst of the people. I got to read that again. All great movements are popular movements. They are the volcanic eruptions of human passions and emotions, stirred into activity by the ruthless goddess of distress, or by the torch of the spoken word cast into the midst of the people. Folks, honestly, I don't know what I can add to this. I'm just reading these quotes. Tell me Donald Trump is not using Adolf Hitler's playbook. Tell me. Not just Trump, but a certain part, anyway, of the Republican Party. Adolf Hitler said, struggle is the father of all things. It is not by the principles of humanity that man lives or is able to preserve himself above the animal world, but solely by means of the most brutal struggle. Folks, I hope you have enough reason, I hope you have enough sense as you hear these quotes. I can see Donald Trump in every one of these. I can see him in every single one of these quotes. And this is why I said, we as a people had better do every cotton-picking thing in our power to make sure that man never walks across the threshold of the White House ever again. It was dangerous. He came close to destroying this republic in his first term. But in a second term, not needing to win anybody's votes, because technically he wouldn't be able to run for election again, and he wouldn't be able to run for office again anyway. Therefore, he'll have no constraints and he will have no loyalties. He will not have to be loyal to the religious right. He will not have to be loyal to anybody because he'll be a lame duck. He's not going to have to win anybody's vote anymore. And anybody who understands the narcissist knows the minute they don't need you, they throw you away like toilet paper. Donald Trump promised he was going to elect all the best people. I know all the best people. We're going to have all the best people. And then the minute they left his administration, all of a sudden they were no good, they were lazy, they were bad, they were this, they were that. Well, let me tell you something, Mr. Trump. If you are that easily taken by all these fraudulent people, if you are no better a judge of character than that, so that you are constantly putting people in the highest positions of government, from Secretary of State all the way to your chief of staff and all of this, if you're no better a judge of character so that you constantly are putting people in who turn out to be lousy and turn out to be terrible, then you are the last stinking person I want in the White House. Interestingly enough, you haven't seen the turnover. You haven't seen the rollover of staff under Biden. You've never seen the turnover of staff under any president in history that we saw under Trump. But the bottom line is this, I say it again, Donald Trump is using Adolf Hitler's thoughts, his techniques. He's using Adolf Hitler's playbook, folks. And we know how that story turned out. And those that don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. That's all I have to share at the moment. I hope that has been helpful to you in some way. God bless you. We'll see you again soon.